I'm doing some problems from 7-4, Math 127. These are 1 and 5. And what the real problem I think people are encountering with these problems is they don't know well enough, they haven't memorized their trig values like sine of pi over 4, sine of pi over 2, things like that, cosine of pi over 3. Those standard ones that we talk about all the time need to be memorized because it makes us go a lot better. So in this problem here, we have 2 sine of x plus 1 equals 0. And so we're going to start by subtracting 1 from both sides. And we have 2 sine of x equals negative 1. Okay, we're solving an equation, and we've all had algebra at this point, so we can divide by 2 on both sides. Sine of x equals negative 1/2. Okay, so we need to figure out when is sine of what I should say makes negative 1/2, and we know that all students take calculus. Sine is negative in the bottom two quadrants, and so we know it's going to have to be in the third quadrant and the fourth quadrant. Now, if you put this in the calculator, let me take another step here. Arc sine of sine of x equals arc sine of negative 1/2. And I know you could put in the calculator, it's probably going to give you, depends on what you have, a decimal or a fraction. So that's going to give you x equals, but you might know this value as well. So that's going to be negative pi over 6. Now, let me just reference something here. Arc sine is going to give us values from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2. We want the values for this, and it gave us the value down here in this fourth quadrant is negative pi over 6. But if we want to talk about this from 0 to 2 pi, we have to figure out what's it going to be in that third quadrant and that fourth quadrant. So if you know what's down here at negative pi over 6, how do we get it in the it's from 0 to 2 pi? How do we get this part here? Well, we take negative pi over 6, and we're going to add to it 2 pi. And that's going to give us 11 pi over 6. But we also have the value that I talked about over in this quadrant here, third quadrant, where the reference angle is negative pi over 6. Or should I say, I can say it. It's a pi over 6 reference angle. Sine's negative in that part, so pi over 6 is our reference angle for that quadrant. So how much do we need to add to that? Let me go back to orange to get there. Well, pi more. So pi plus pi over 6 is going to be 7 pi over 6. Now those are not exactly what the answers are in the book. Those are really close. One last part to it, though, is to remember that sine is a periodic function. So, for example, while this is a solution that way, and we also found a solution there, if we go around again, we're going to get another solution to it, another solution to it, another solution to it. So we'd say for each of these, pi, or say 11 pi over 6 plus 2n pi, and sometimes you might see this in other books as 2k pi. The point is, where n or k are integers, and you can say it's 2 pi, then plus 4 pi, or plus 6 pi, or plus 8 pi, or be an integer and it can be negative 2 pi, or negative 4 pi, and so on. This will generate all the possible values. Likewise, 7 pi over 6 plus 2n pi. So this has an infinite number of solutions. Okay, the next one, number 5, was asked. For number 5, we have 2 cosine of x minus the square root of 3 equals 0. Okay. We're going to add the square root of 3 to both sides. If I could just get this pen to work well. 2 cosine of x. Okay, I'm not happy with that 3 or that s. Put s there, put the 3 there. Okay. Equals the square root of 3. We'll divide both sides by 2. Cosine of x equals the square root of 3 over 2. Now where does this occur? Now this is positive. All students take calculus. So we know it's positive. It's going to be in the first quadrant and the fourth quadrants. And so we could do our arc cosine of cosine of x, that undoes the cosine, or gives just an x, equals arc cosine of the square root of 3 over 2. So arc cosine of cosine just gives us x, and arc cosine of square root of 3 over 2, that's going to be pi over 6. You've got to memorize these things. Cosine of pi over 6 is square root of 3 over 2. And you have to recall that arc cosine returns values in the first and second quadrants. The first quadrant gives you the positive ones, the second quadrant gives you the negative, so it's going to be from 0 to pi. And the one it's giving us is right here at pi over 6. And that's where a lot of students, I get a lot of questions about this. They keep forgetting that arc cosine only gives in 2 quadrants because for it to be a function, it can only be restricted to those 2 quadrants. It can't be all 4. Otherwise, we have a non-function. So to keep it as a function, we have to restrict the range. Anyway, cosine is also positive in the fourth quadrant. So, like having a reference angle of pi over 6 there, how do we get that reference angle? Well, if you took 2 pi and subtracted pi over 6, you're going to get 11 pi over 6. And as we saw in the last problem, the solutions are going to be pi over 6 plus 2n pi, because it's cyclical, or periodic. You're going to have these infinite solutions. Every 2 pi, you're going to have a solution show up. And x equals 11 pi over 6 plus 2n pi. Okay. Well, I hope that helps.